Like, for 18th and 19th century Americans, the western frontier represented the opportunity to start over and possibly to strike it rich by dint of one's own individual effort, even back when the West was like Ohio. In this mythology, the West was a magnet for restless young men who lit out for the uncorrupted, unoccupied, untamed territories to seek their fortune.
I'm Louis Atola.
My name is Christian Georgiou.
I'm Aiden Peter.
My name is Philippe Yoshida.
Good afternoon, my name is Guillermo German, and today we're going to be talking about the justification of manifest destiny. In what way was the implementation of manifest destiny justified with its influence on the Native Americans throughout the 19th century? This question opens up to the examination of how manifest destiny, which was the belief that it was America's destiny to expand westward, and how it justified the increasing power that happened in the United States in the 19th century.
The implementation of manifest destiny was justified for its increase of power through territorial expansion, resource extraction, and God-given rights.
Many Americans saw westward expansion as a fulfillment of God's will. They believed that it was that God had blessed them, and that it was a divine duty to spread American ideals, religion, and education across the continent. Some religious groups even saw America as a new promised land, a land of opportunity and freedom. In this painting, we can see a prosperous land, indicating that a prosperous land reinforcing the idea that it was new land and new land to be conquered. It can also be seen in this painting a female figure of America, Columbia, shining her light upon the Americans traveling westward, indicating that this movement can be justified with America's religious background. Many Americans believe that it was their way of life was superior to the Native Americans from areas of religion to education. This sense of cultural superiority held together the idea that expansion was a civilizing mission sanctioned by God.
The blue line displayed on this graph represents the total slave and Black American population actively increasing, while the gray line shows a slow increase in the free slave and Black American population throughout the 19th century. This data relates to how slavery was important to American settlers at the time, because as Americans expanded west, hard labor and agricultural production was necessary to produce goods that were sold to make profit. Manifest destiny didn't begin until 1812, when Americans had the belief that it was based on the idea that they were divine and given rights from God to expand and move across continent. Shortly after, the Missouri Compromise took place in 1820, stating that slavery would be prohibited north of the southern boundary of Missouri. This led to an increase in the southern economy, as it depended heavily on slave and forced labor.
Despite the Compromise of 1820, which banned slavery north of the Missouri southern border, the Compromise of 1850 made it possible for popular sovereignty to determine the status of slavery in the territories of New Mexico and Utah. Then in 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act increased tension even more. This act stated that Kansas and Nebraska would be admitted its territories, and the legality of slavery would be determined by the people living in those areas. After the act was passed, people who supported slavery surged into Kansas, hoping to allow slavery by having a vote. This enraged the abolitionists, so they also moved into Kansas and attempted to set up their own government. They denounced a vote for slavery, insisting that Kansas would be a free state. This created a conflict over freedom of territory. As a result, chaos and violence ensued in a series of battles, which would be known as Bleeding Kansas. Professor of University of Kansas School of Law, Michael H. Hoflick, backs up the idea that these events led up to Bleeding Kansas by introducing facts and findings in his 2017 paper titled Claims for Loss in Territorial Kansas.
Economic motives through land acquisition. This is really important because lands could be used for multiple purposes to increase economic prosperity. To begin with, agricultural production led to the use of acquired lands, allowing the expansion of crops and agriculture through farming, but it often displaced native populations for the use of their lands. Moreover, ranching allowed for the establishment of ranches, which supported livestock and cattle rearing. which again often displaced natives for the use of their lands. According to Presley Schilling, a University of Memphis professor, gold mines used at newly found lands led to a boom effect on the economy. This is really important because entrepreneurs seek to find new lands in hopes of prospering with them, such as the use of them for gold mines. All in all, the economic motive of Manifest Destiny was very significant, as it was a big factor for westward expansion, especially with the use of native lands. As we can see in this postcard, it says, "The new home in the far west," which is a call to move westward. Moreover, we can see a man and his two children, which can be depicted as farmers who are probably seeking land for agricultural prosperity. As we can see in the back, there is the fascinating mountains, a river with a water source, animals, and a beautiful land. And this promoting landscape is really promising and supported economic prosperity and encouraged settlers to move west.
The ideology of Manifest Destiny was justified by the expansion of American power because of the pursuit of prosperity and development. Americans traveled westward not only with reason to believe that it was their God-given right, but with hope that with many people we'd be able to start new lives and further benefit the American flag. They believed that by spreading their way of life, political values, and economic opportunities, they were not only securing their own future, but bringing progress to the entire nation. This vision of expansion played a significant role in shaping Americans' identity and policies, driving westward expansion and influencing the nation's growth.
The map shown to your left illustrates in pink the few states, and in brown, the few territories of the United States in 1812, when compared to the many states in pink and territories depicted in this 1867 map. This contrast is significant due to Manifest Destiny, which occurred within the same time frame of these maps. This large difference in territory represents that over time, the United States has gained huge amounts of power and control over lands. Doctor of Philosophy and Professor of Kent State University supports this by providing evidence that Kansas, a state that was originally a territory controlled by Native Americans, was taken over by American settlers, proving they gained power over territories.
The acquisition and settlement of Western territories led to the establishment of new states, significantly altering the nation's total population by an increase in growth rate and addition of slaves, which then led to the increase in tensions of labor, which then led to the Civil War. There was also a change in economy by increasing agricultural production and a huge impact on Native Americans' displacement in North America. Thank you.
Exactly 8 minutes. Aiden, we'll start with you and then we'll go across. All right, Aiden. What's the way in which your team's resolution that you guys came up with makes you think different about the research you conducted?
It makes me think differently about the research I conducted because it really shows how impactful not only my research, which was political, but also how economically and historically and religiously that they all affected the movement of Manifest Destiny.
All right. Sorry, Lewis. If you had another team member, what perspective could they bring that would have been a contribution to the project?
I feel like it would have been important if we added an environmental side of things, because the amount of land that was like acquired by, through our Manifest Destiny, I feel like we should talk about.
Thank you. Guy, describe an argument from one of your peers, IRRs, that makes you think differently about the conclusion that you guys came up with.
So I used Chris's IRR that was economic, because my IRR, it was religion, and that didn't justify Manifest Destiny enough. So I used economic for like land acquisition for another big reason for Manifest Destiny.
All right, thank you. Chris, reflecting on your colleagues' works, which one do you feel had the greatest impact on your understanding of Manifest Destiny?
In my opinion, Guilherme's, which was the religious perspective, had the most impactful meaning on Manifest Destiny, because I thought it was more for the seeking of power and more economic prosperity. But the religious aspect and how it was a God-given right to seek new lands and move westward was really impacted by Guy's arguments.
All right, thank you. Sorry, and save the best for last. What's a compelling argument from one of your group's IRRs that you didn't use, and then why didn't you use it?
So in our presentation, we didn't include Lewis's social perspective, and one of his arguments stated that Native Americans were like negatively impacted by Manifest Destiny, and that would unjustify the cause of Manifest Destiny. So we decided not to include it because we were justifying Manifest Destiny in our presentation.
You guys are done.